Hi, I'm Alan Hedblum. Welcome to our show, a place to feel like you belong. During our conversation, you'll notice words and phrases appearing at the bottom of the screen. These expressions will later be explained during our follow-up segment called What'd You Say? For now, let's welcome today's guest. Our guest in the studio today is Paulo Saiani. Paulo is an engineer working for the Dow Chemical Company in Midland, Michigan. We're so pleased to welcome Paulo to Grand Rapids today. Paulo, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
You bet. So you were born, grew up in Brazil, but you work for a multinational company, Dow Chemical. They have branches all over the world. And at one point they said, hey, Paulo, come up to Michigan and work here for a while. Tell us, how does that process work? And talk a little bit about the involvement of the employee and how that works.
Yeah, it was actually a very interesting process because I was working for Dow Automotive. So, as you said, Dow Chemical Company has several brands. At that point, I was in the Dow Automotive business. And then I was doing a good job over there, implementing some things that they kind of took their attention for that. So basically they invited me, hey, would you want to do that for another business of Dow, for POWERHOUSE Dow Solar? And I promptly said, why not? So basically this happened back in 2010. And since then I'm working from Midland, Michigan. And during 3 years I was working for Dow Solar. And now I'm part of another business which is called Dow AgroSciences.
Okay. So you've been in the U.S. for a little over 3 years now.
Exactly. 3 years and 3 months, to be exact.
Okay. What has that adaptation been like for you? To move from Brazil, as we were talking earlier, especially your region, is really the vacation land, heart and soul of Brazil, to the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, although we are all part of what we call the Western culture, right? There are some big differences.
For example?
So, the weather is, especially at this time in the year, right? It's a big difference, but the way that people relate to each other, it's a big cultural shock as well.
For example?
So, especially in my region in Brazil, in Bahia, people are very easygoing and they like to receive people on their houses. They like to do parties together, barbecues, and all sorts of things like that. And when I first came to Midland, my first impression is that, oh my goodness, there's no people on the roads. There's no people around my house or walking by.
Nobody on the sidewalks.
Exactly. So this was a big shock for me because I was used to see lots of people all around me. So, and then I was starting to understand why this happened. So it's a cultural difference.
How does that translate in the workplace? What are some major differences in the workplace?
Well, that's a very, very interesting topic because I feel that here we are more productive because our focus is more on get things done as opposed to make relationships. So if you ask me, okay, in a certain time frame, you guys in the United States, you produce more? Yes, the answer would be affirmative. But at the same time, I think that a balance would be very nice if we could have something that's not what we have in Brazil, that's maybe too much relational, or neither here, which is too much like focus on getting things done. A balance would be the ideal.
Sure.
And I'm just able to see that because I was able to work there and work here. So that's one of the beauties to be like an expatriate.
Okay, okay. I know that there's a group of Brazilians in Michigan, and especially in Midland, and you socialize, regularly. In fact, you've gotten some of the local butcher shops to change their purchases to accommodate these Brazilian barbecuing needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the balance? What is the secret to striking a balance? Because I've seen some expats, they totally isolate themselves within the expat community, don't particularly learn English, and then there are people who reach out. Where do you find that balance?
And this is exactly the common place. So normally people that get expatriated, they try to isolate themselves in order to be protected. They feel protected by doing that, by not exposing themselves to the new environment. So what I was trying to do together with my family was exactly the opposite. We thought that, okay, if we have a limited time here, and originally it was just 3 years, let's try to maximize our experience. So, and we were very glad to find a very good Brazilian community in Midland, Michigan, which is a city that has just 35,000 people, but around 70 families, 70 Brazilian families. So at some point in time, we received some ideas from friends to create a website, a virtual group for all the Brazilian community. And I kind of facilitate that group by sharing information, by making sure that we know each other and that we welcome new expatriates. So this is kind of a success at this point because we can make connections pretty much immediately as we have someone that is new to the community, and this kind of breaks the ice for these newcomers. So they can ask questions, they feel protected now by the community. But this doesn't mean that we are isolating ourselves as Brazilians from the other communities.
So is this expat community only Brazilians, or is it other Chinese or Germans or et cetera?
Good question. So this is not only for Brazilians, but also for people that relate to the Brazilian culture. Okay. So for example, we have expatriates from Mexico, we have expatriates from Colombia, Venezuela, that likes to be with Brazilians, like to be with us in these events. We have also Americans that would like to know a little bit more about our culture. We have some other Americans that would like to learn Portuguese. So they meet us because we have a Brazilian lunch every Friday for the people that are there eventually and close to a restaurant that we pick every Friday. So basically they just want to listen to the language and try to pick up a little bit. So it's a completely open environment, and we welcome everybody to join us. So it's not only for Brazilians, and that's one of the secrets for the success of this virtual group.
One of the things that's impressed me about your time in Michigan is that you really take full advantage of what's here, and you have a lot of interests and hobbies, and one of them is car racing.
Oh,
so what,
yes.
What did you used to do in Brazil, and how have you extended that to your time here in the U.S.?
I always love cars, so this is the topic that grabs my attention 24/7. And my mom used to tell me that when I was just 3 years old, I was like checking the names of the cars, and I was not missing a single name. So this is something that I have with me for a long time. At some point in my life in Brazil, I started to do some races, dragster races to be more accurate. And I still have my old Volkswagen Bug over there, and my mom saved it for me. And when I came here,
Americans might be shocked to hear that you can do racing in a VW Bug.
Exactly, and actually it's it's a very good car because it has a different shape that helps in some aerodynamics.
Okay.
And for dragster races, what really matters is a big block. So
okay.
So this really helps. And then when I came to US, I said to myself, I'm going to the automobile state, so Michigan, and what a great place to keep doing what I used to do, and in a better way. So I bought pretty much a good American muscle, just to feel that I belong to the new environment. And I'm doing dragster races here as well, autocross races, and some other interesting things like ice runs during the winter of Michigan.
On inland lakes, ice racing.
Exactly, on the frozen lake.
Which you can't do in Brazil.
Absolutely. When I was like posting some pictures on my Facebook page, people say, "Are you crazy? Because how could you put your car inside the lake?" And I say, it's frozen. Like, yeah, there's pretty much 10 inches of hard ice. So it's okay.
Yeah. And your dad is a car racing fan too.
Yes. My dad loves car as well.
And when they came here last year to visit you and spend some time, a month or so, you took your dad to MIS, Michigan International Speedway.
Exactly.
Can you share that story? Because part of the background is your dad has had a stroke, okay, and gets around mostly in a wheelchair now.
Exactly.
So tell me that story, because it was really touching.
Yeah, this was a very nice opportunity that I had to bring both of my parents here last year, and especially my dad. Because of the stroke, he walks with some difficulties, and if it's a long distance, he needs to be on a wheelchair. So basically, one of his dreams, as well as my dream, was to go to the NASCAR. So I was waiting all that time exactly to go together with him. And we did that, and it was quite challenging, because on a wheelchair, the place that we could sit for the NASCAR race was on the top of the area. So it was pretty hard to put us over there. But like, because of the stroke, he's also much more emotional. Okay. So we were crying together, and this was one of the best experience that I had with him, because I remember the time from Brazil that he was like helping me on making sure that my car was up and running. And actually his brother he still has a mechanic store there, and was helping me with parts, with like even psychological sharing. So it was very important for me to do that with my dad over here. So now every time that I have an experience like that, we normally share the pictures, and he's following all my car adventures by the social medias.
Awesome. What really touched me was so many places in the world are inaccessible to people with handicaps. And the one thing that we absolutely get right, I think, in this country is accessibility, broad accessibility for all. And I was just so moved when you said that, your dad was able to wheel right up in there. Exactly. There was this place for him to sit and watch from his wheelchair and enjoy like everybody else.
Yeah, including like people to help us to put the wheelchair. It was a ramp, so yeah, you're absolutely right. We have in the United States the best, I think, support for people that need like to use wheelchairs. I was not only there, but I was also driving to cities like Chicago and New York City, Detroit, and it was easy task to move around, to take him to places that I would never dare to take in Brazil, for example. They are improving a lot on that, especially with the World Cup coming and the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. So this tends to be better. But over here was a positive shock for me and for my parents to see that, yeah, he was like normally walking or going to places that we normally didn't do in Brazil, I would say.
I was struck by that because when I was living in Salvador a number of years ago, I went to the home stadium of your arch rival soccer team at the Barradão.
Oh, a bad place. Yeah, you should not.
And I noticed that they had the seating was often just sort of concrete steps, And I looked around and I said, you know, there is no handicap access. And until you see that, you don't realize what you're missing, what you take for granted.
Exactly.
And so you need to go to another place to really get those experiences of what you've left behind.
Exactly, and it's interesting that you touch base about that, because when I was there last time, we went to a small stadium because they completely remodeled the Fonte Nova, which is the biggest stadium over there, exactly for the World Cup. But so in parallel, we're having the games for Bahia, my heart.
Your team.
Exactly, my team, and I took him there. And I was impressed by the fact that they have all the support for wheelchairs and people that need that kind of support. We parked the car close to the position that he would be watching the game. So it was a great experience. He loves soccer as well. And I'm assuming that the new Fonte Nova has a lot of things like that now they can take for granted as well.
Yeah, the nice byproduct of the games coming to Brazil.
Exactly. It's an international event, so they gotta have international standards as well.
Awesome, awesome. So if you were talking to new expats coming to the United States, what advice would you give them? Because truly, you have reached out and embraced every aspect from, you know, ice racing to many other things. What would you say to new expats coming here?
My piece of advice is simple. Maximize your time while you are abroad. So try to go to places. Travel is one of the most important things that anybody can do, because you will have stories, and what makes your life full is exactly the stories that you have to tell people. So basically, my advice is go to places, expose yourself, don't feel afraid to talk in front of people, challenge yourself in a day-to-day. I could be making mistakes here on my speech, but I'm improving day by day from day 0 to now. So that my advice is exactly that. Don't try to isolate yourself and your family. You have a great experience in front of you, so take that, go there and have fun.
Okay, we have to wrap up in just a second, but the theme of our show is belonging. How do you create belonging? How do you say, yeah, Michigan, I fit in here?
It took a while, actually. It took approximately a year, but now that I know the culture, now that I know the people and I relate with them, I feel that I belong to the state of Michigan. I feel that I belong to the United States exactly because I'm having fun here. People embraced me, so they make me feel that I belong. So I had no issues with that. And I try to do my best exactly to give them back. So that's why you are always invited to a Brazilian barbecue at home, and I feel the same. I feel that at any time I can go to your home, and that's the...
Seja bem-vindo.
Exact, thank you. That's exactly the feeling that I have right now. And I have the wish to stay here for a while, exactly because I feel that I belong.
Awesome, awesome. Paulo, it's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us in the studio.
Thanks for having me, Alan. It was a pleasure for me to have this conversation with you today.
Awesome, awesome. And for our viewers at home, please stay by with us because we'll be coming back shortly for our segment called What'd You Say? During our conversation with Paulo, you heard him say American muscle. A muscle car is a high horsepower street car used for street racing, sometimes called drag racing, which by the way is illegal. Typical examples of these kinds of cars would be the Chevy Camaro, Ford Mustang, or Dodge Charger. Something else you heard Paulo say was up and running. And this means something that's ready, it's functioning, it's good to go. If there are other expressions that you heard during our conversation which were difficult for you to understand, check out our website under the What'd You Say section for more explanations. Would you know what I meant if I said, oops? What about, uh-oh? Sometimes Americans use words that aren't really words to communicate basic thoughts. Today, I'd like to teach you 7 nonverbal expressions that you will hear from your American neighbors and coworkers. If you see them written, they don't look like words, but I assure you they have meanings. Some of them you may already know. This is something you might hear around a dinner table or in a restaurant. It means, this is delicious. Oops. This means, I made a mistake. Maybe I dropped something. Psst. This means, come here. I have something private to tell you. Or sometimes, This means, I don't know. I'm not sure what to say. This means no. This means yes, or sure, or I agree. Uh-oh. This means here comes trouble. Something wrong is happening. Several of these expressions are spelled similarly, so listen carefully. There's a huge difference between answering a question with and To practice saying them, ask a native speaker to help you practice just the right intonation. You can take a quiz on these expressions on our website at feellikeyouBelong.com.
It was my very first assignment. You guys know Ionia is a very rural community. Out in the farms, you know, I learned how to investigate crimes you don't see every day in the city of Detroit. Yeah. You guys would never believe what my very first investigation was. You guys are like this. Stolen John Deere tractor. I think that's funny. You should have seen the farmer when I asked him, what color is it? Too, wouldn't it?